Emmett was born the 25th of July, 1941. And it was a very difficult birth. He was a breech baby, and they had to get him turned around and so forth and so on, which caused a whole lot of misery and pain. He was the happiest baby in the world. It looked like he said, "Free at last, I'm here, I'm free." And nothing fazed him. By that I mean you didn't have to hold him and rock him and pet him. If you gave him that bottle or made sure he was dry, you could put him in his bed and he would lie there and kick and coo and for hours. As he grew up, it was more like we were sisters and brothers almost, because my mother raised him while I went to work. So it was like he was hers, and I knew I was hers, and we had fun together. We laughed together. We never did much fighting until he and I moved alone, and it would become necessary to discipline him ever so often.
I don't know if prankster will be the right term or not, but I'll just give you an example of his fun, loving ways. Once we went to Chicago with him, and we were walking down 63rd Street in St. Lawrence, and he yelled out, "Here are my two big cousins from the suburbs. Nobody can beat them up." So we grabbed him up and shut him up right quick. So that was fun to him, but it wasn't so funny to us at the time.
Emmett was mischievous. He liked to play, and he had no sense of danger. Everything was funny to him. And he shot some firecrackers within the city limit, which was a no-no. He didn't do things like that, but to him, that was funny.
He was a very nice, intelligent young man. I call him a young man because he was at that age, you know. He was very intelligent, he was sweet, and he was lovely.
He was very good in art, and he was very good in science. I don't know, he seemed to unravel that science like nobody's business. He was very good in spelling, too.
The life for African Americans in the South during Jim Crow was as close to a repressive regime as you could imagine. Blacks could not eat at public restaurants, couldn't rent hotel rooms, literally had to ride in the back of buses or public transportation.
We couldn't get a drink of water because how thirsty we were. Unless we found that colored water fountain, we couldn't get a drink of water out of a fountain. Our school term was from 4 to 6 months a year, and we had no busing. There were no buses that bused us to school. We had to walk to school 3, 4, 5 miles, whatever, just to live from the school.
African Americans were forced to live in certain communities, and they had to develop within that community. And there was not much difference between segregation in the South and apartheid in South Africa.
Life for blacks was one of seclusion and of being in every way, shape, and form treated as less than human, less than equal.
Blacks in those days, it was against the law to say yes and no to white folks. And if it didn't, then you could be beaten and even killed for saying yeah and not calling him by his name.
African Americans had no protection from the law because in most cases they could not vote. And if you cannot vote for the sheriff or the police officers or the mayor, then they do not have to loan any type of assistance to you. And therefore, African Americans lived in this constant fear of something happening to them and they're not being able to react.
My brother was beaten almost to death in Jackson because he went to Walgreens and sat down to have a sundae or whatever he ordered. They beat him almost unmercifully right here in Jackson. I guess I can't really describe how impoverished it was. No matter how wealthy you were as black, there weren't many wealthy people anyway, But those who had a little money, they were no different. You're just another nigger.
My grandfather came to Chicago in 1955 to a funeral, and my mother and them allowed me to go back with him for vacation. And so Emmett found out and he wanted to go. There were some questions of whether he should go or not, but they finally let him go.
Oh, that day will live in infamy, so far as I'm concerned. I got up that morning, and for some reason we couldn't get out of that house. We were supposed to meet Moses down at 12th Street Station. We could hear the whistle blowing as we got to the steps. He tore up the steps. I said, wait a minute. I said, you didn't kiss me goodbye. Where are you going? How do I know I'll ever see you again? And he said, oh, Mama, he really scolded me. And I wondered why I said a dumb thing like that. But he turned around, came back, he gave me the kiss, and then he gave me his watch. He said, here, take this watch. I won't need it where I'm going. And I said, okay, I'll wear it. And I put it on. And I said, what about your ring? Because I'd given him his daddy's ring. First time. He said, well, I'm going to show this off to the fellows.
They always kind of prep you for going to Mississippi, made you very aware of what could happen and what the South was like. And so I was very much aware of what could happen while we were in Mississippi. And I don't know if Emmett was told or not.
That summer when Emmett and Wheeler arrived, it was the beginning of the cotton harvest time. During the day, we would pick cotton all day.
I wasn't old enough really to pick cotton. Emmett wasn't either. So we just played around in the field most of the time.
We picked cotton all day. After the weighing up, well, after we finished picking the cotton, we had our supper. Then we decided to go to the little country store. From the country store, we went up to Money. That's where we met other boys, and the checker game was going on.
When we got to the store in Money, Bryant's store, I went in and I don't know what I purchased, but I spent some money. And as I was in the store spending my money, EMMETT came in. So I left out and left him in the store.
When he came out, that's when they sent me in to make sure that he didn't say anything out of line. Now, what he said inside the store, I don't know before I got there.
He asked for 10 cents to get 10 cents worth of bubble gum. He put the money into her hand. Just like that. And she jerked her hand back. So that was it.
He and I left the store together. We didn't have any conversation with Mrs. Bryant. We left together. She came out of the store and went to her car, which was parked on the north side of the store. And as she was going to her car, that's when Emmett whistled at her, the famous wolf whistle.
Yes, he whistled at Carolyn Bryant when she came out of the store.
No one knew that he was going to whistle. And when he whistled, it scared everybody in the bunch. And when he saw our reaction, he got scared.
Miss Bryant came out, and she was going to her car, and someone said that she was going for a gun.
We all panicked, including Emmett. We jumped in the car, and when we got in the car just wasn't moving fast enough.
And we sped down the gravel road, and we looked behind us, and there's a car behind us. So we thinking that they're after us. So we pick up some speed, pull to the side of the road, and jump out of the car, and we ran down through the cotton field. And as we ran through the cotton field, the cotton bolls were kind of green, they were hitting our legs, and some of us fell over each other, and the car went right on by. So we said, well, nothing's to that. And Emmett Till begged us not to tell our grandfather what happened, and we didn't.
Our neighbor, Ruther May Crawford, she told us that we was going to hear some more about that. And I didn't think nothing of it because I'd never heard of anything like that before.
3 days had gone by, and this girl told us, Ruth told us, hey, you guys are going to hear some more about this.
We had heard this colored man said that they was going to get him. That's how we knew to go back to tell Mose right. To take the boys to Grenada to the train station, put them on the train. He didn't do it.
So actually we forgot about it. We were 16, 12, 13, 14, 16 years old. So we went to Greenwood.
We all said, well, we going to town. We had picked some cotton and made some chain, and my older brother said, well, I'm gonna take y'all to Greenwood.
I carried them all to Greenwood, bought them a little wine, around 12 or 12:30, I brought them back out.
Then about 2:30 in the morning, thereabout, I could hear people outside talking, and they talking about Emmett, and they talking about the boy from Chicago. They didn't say Emmett. They said there's a fat boy from Chicago, and they told my grandfather they wanted to talk to him.
I looked out the windows just like daylight, and I said, my Lord, I said, look at the cars. But I didn't know where they was going. So at the time, I could see this black man get out of the car, went to the back, and the white went to the front.
This is Mose Wright. I am the uncle of Emmett Lewis Till. Sunday morning, about 2:30, someone called at the door. And I said, who is it? And he said, this is Mr. Bryant. I want to talk with you and the boy. And when I opened the door, there was a man standing with a pistol in one hand and a flashlight in the other hand. And he asked me, did I have two boys there from Chicago? I told him I have. And he said, I want the boy that done all that talk.
So they came to my room first, and they had a pistol in one hand, a flashlight in the other, and they looked on me and Maurice, who's in bed with me, and they recognized that Maurice or myself, we weren't the one that they were looking for. So they passed on through the house to the third room where Emmett was in the bed with Simi.
And so we marched all around through two rooms, and I found the boy in the third room in the bed with my baby boy.
I hear this noise in the bedroom, and I look up and I see this Roy Bryant. I knew him. And I saw the other tall, bald-headed man. They was hollering and fussing. They told me to lay back down and go to sleep. But I kept my eyes open and saw what was going on, that they was going to take Emmett. And at that point, I didn't know where they was going to take him. I said, well, maybe they're going to take him home.
They aroused him out of the bed, and I don't think he really knew what was going on. So he was answering their question, but he wasn't saying yes, sir, and no, sir. So they became irate about that. And they started cursing and swearing. And I think he wanted to put on his socks or something with his shoes. And it was a terrifying experience. He had no idea what was going on, really. Yeah, had no idea the kind of people that he was dealing with, he was faced with. He had no way of conceiving what the South was like, no kind of way.
In the room, my mom, she offered them money not to take the boy, and that's when Roy kind of hesitated. But Marlon wouldn't have nothing of it. He had made up his mind. He was the one with the gun. He had a .45 in his hand, and he was calling the shots. And he claimed that he was just going to take him up the road and just whip him and turn him loose. That's what he said he was going to do.
They were telling my grandfather if he's not the one, they was going to bring him back. And they left. And after they left, nobody said anything to anybody.
And they marched him to the car, and they asked someone there, well, this is the right boy? And the answer was, here. And they drove toward money.
After they left, Mama was very upset. And Daddy was walking around, all he could say is, he was saying, That's all he could say.
I do know that you don't whistle at a white woman in Mississippi. And I was praying that they didn't kill him. I wasn't going to kill him, just maybe torture him a little bit and bring a kid back to his grandfather.
When I'm laying there in the bed, waiting for them to bring him back. Every car that I would hear coming down the road, I thought it was them bringing him back. But then when it began to get turned towards dawn, I knew they weren't going to bring him back.
I know one thing, he was sad. That was the saddest day I ever seen in my life. Ooh, Lord, that was sad. I felt for Bobo, Mama. I really did. Everybody down that road cried.
Mose Wright knocked on the door and said, "They're taking my boy." Well, I told him we could go and look for him. We went up to Munnings and we come back. And then Mose told me, ain't nothing else we could do. Just sit and wait.
I was sound asleep at 9:30. And I guess I slept about a couple hours. And it was Willie Mae telling me that those men had come and taken Bo away from my uncle's house, her father's house.
As I was